Good morning and welcome to this edition of San Diego People. I'm Alan Denton. February is Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month, and San Diego County has several new resources to help parents and their teens. Several organizations, including the Chargers, the San Diego Domestic Violence Council, and the District Attorney's Office, are teaming up to create a new outreach campaign. Its key message is, "Now is the time." And the focus is to educate teens in the community about dating abuse. And it's a growing issue. In 2015, 73 reported cases involving teen domestic violence were referred to the DA's office. And officials say there are many cases that go unreported.
Now is the time for parents to talk to their teens about healthy relationships and know the signs of teen relationship violence so that they can get their teen the help that they need and get them out of the unhealthy relationship before it's too late.
And research shows dating abuse is a problem among teens nationally. Nearly 1.5 million high school students nationwide experience physical abuse from a dating partner every year. Joining us now to talk about this growing problem, Deputy District Attorney Tracy Pryor. Tracy, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Why does dating violence happen in the first place? What are some of the causes behind that?
Sure. Dating violence is essentially a pattern of behaviors to exhibit power and control over the teen partner. And so this can exhibit itself in physical abuse, digital abuse, sexual abuse, emotional verbal abuse, put downs, calling somebody names, unusually critical. It manifests itself in all different aspects of a teen's dating relationship.
How serious is the problem here in San Diego County?
Unfortunately, it's prevalent. We know that in the United States, 1.5 million high schoolers will have some sort of physical situation happen in their teen relationship. In our county, at the District Attorney's Office, we received 73 cases for prosecution, but the important thing to remember there is those were only the ones that were reported. This typically is a very underreported crime because of some of the shame, the embarrassment, a lot of inhibitors to having a teen actually come forward.
Is the problem growing?
You know, it's remained stable over the years, and so the important part is to have awareness, like a campaign like this, to get the word out. You know, now's the time for kids, teens, parents, officials and schools and everybody to recognize warning signs and try to educate the teens that find that safe and healthy place. Report to somebody if you feel that in your relationship you're not healthy or not safe. Trying to talk to kids about the self-esteem that can come outside of a relationship, and letting them know that if they don't feel safe or they're feeling like they're getting hurt, that they can tell someone. I
think you've already touched on it briefly, but for parents who may be watching at home, go down the list of the warning signs again.
Sure. This can manifest itself in, you see your teen just running to that phone. They can't get away from that phone because there's excessive texting going on. The teen is withdrawn. The teen all of a sudden is quitting activities perhaps that they might love to do, sports or dance or soccer.
Sometimes parents think, well, this is something else going on. They don't ever think maybe that it's teen abuse. They may,
sure.
It's just the teenager's busy with other, boyfriends or getting together in groups or whatever when they see some of these signs. But then there's also some real clear signals, aren't there?
Oh, sure. If it manifests itself, obviously, in unexplained bruises or any sort of, uncontrollable emotional situation, parents should get in there and really ask some of the questions. Teen relationships shouldn't feel controlling. They shouldn't feel obsessive. They shouldn't feel scary. They should feel natural and healthy and positive. But sometimes for a teen that's in over their head, they might not know that they're in too deep.
Sure. What are some of the long-term consequences for teen dating abuse?
Sure. We know that kids who experience teen dating abuse are more likely to engage in substance abuse, be withdrawn, have mental health problems, and then repeat behaviors sometimes that they have undergone as teens being abused.
What about teen pregnancy or sexually transmitted diseases? Are those also some of the consequences of
Certainly.
teen?
if some of the abuse takes on a sexual tone, and we want kids to recognize that it can turn into sexual abuse, unwanted sexual touching, or making fun of their boundaries, or abusing the boundaries that the teen sets. These are all signs that the teen should feel, wait a minute, I should feel comfortable in my own space, and maybe something's wrong here.
In your line of work, do you see a specific age group or a specific ethnic group that are more susceptible to teen dating abuse?
Domestic violence and teen dating abuse crosses all boundaries. It is not discriminate. And so, no, we don't see it in any particular race or creed or religion or whatnot. It can be happening to anybody. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's the key here, is that parents need to sort of be in tune with these relationships that the kids are having. And to them, I'd say jealousy is one of the most indicating things that can help a parent say, wait a minute, something might be going on here. Jealousy can lead to a lot of these different ways of abusing a teen. And to a teen, it feels like, wait, he loves me so much. He's spending so much time with me. He wants to know where I'm going every minute of the day. He wants me to text him 5 times during class. So to a teen, that might be confusing. But really what's going on is jealousy is a transparent sign of insecurity. And so I think parents need to recognize that, if things go too quickly too soon, or the child has to be with the intimate partner or the teen partner all the time, or else, messages from the teen like, if you don't do this, I'll leave you. If I can't have you, no one will. Please just quit this for me. These are all warning signs that parents should recognize are, could lead to unsafe things.
Why do teenagers not come forward sooner when they see these signs? Obviously, they're smart enough to recognize that this is not a good relationship, especially when it leads to an abusive situation. Why don't they come forward to their parents, or maybe even go to authorities or a school counselor and say, look, this is happening in my life, and I don't feel comfortable with this?
Sure. Well, even in adults, it's very difficult to come forward and say to the world, I am a victim of domestic violence. But let's go back in adolescence. I mean, that's such a confusing time for people and for kids. Sure. And so there's extra shame involved. Kids at school just want to be the same. They want to be popular. They don't want to be different. They don't want to stand out. And they also might feel that their parents will be more upset with them. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Mm-hmm. So there's so many things in the teenage world that's going on that they want to maybe just keep this to themselves. It's easier to do so.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're going to continue our conversation with you in just a minute. Stay with us, and we're just getting started here on San Diego People. Coming up next, we're going to hear a story of survival, how one woman survived an abusive relationship and turned her life around. Stay with us. Welcome back to San Diego People. Today we are talking about teen dating violence and what the country is doing to help stop it. One of the organizations involved, the San Diego Domestic Violence Council, has close ties to the problem. Its president, Jessica Yaffa, is a teen domestic violence survivor, and she joins us now to tell us her story. Thanks for being with us today.
Pleasure.
Your story starts at what age? 16? Was that right?
Yes, I was a senior in high school.
There
sure.
For me.
Just entered my senior year in high school. Was the kind of young woman who didn't have a whole lot of self-esteem, wasn't really involved in school activities, didn't really feel like I fit anywhere, really struggled with personal identity, didn't feel all that pretty or smart or attractive. And so when the football star, class clown guy that everybody was after decided that he had eyes for me, I thought I had died and gone to heaven. Yeah. And so my sort of job very quickly into the relationship became proving to him that I could be the kind of girlfriend that he deserved.
And that's one important note, too, right there, that teenage girls, they don't have to prove anything, do they?
They do not.
And that's where they sometimes things get messed up in school.
Oftentimes. In fact, many teens, male and female,
right,
feel like their identity lies within someone else. Yeah. That if I could just be in a relationship, I would be happy. That if I could just find someone to love me, I would be happy. Yeah. And that is where the problem often begins.
Yeah, yeah. Now, how did it transpire over what period of time?
It was a long period of time, a lengthy period of time. The first couple of years in the relationship, there were no physical incidents of violence. And so all of the red flags and warning signs, many of which Tracy talked about earlier, certainly existed.
Was there verbal abuse of any kind early on?
Sure. He would call me stupid and tell me that I was wearing something too low or too high, that my friends were no good, that they were a bunch of trouble and that I needed to stop hanging out with them, and that if I were late calling, that it was because I was screwing around with someone else. And yet yet for a young woman who felt like she couldn't really do anything right even before entering into the relationship, he wasn't telling me anything that I didn't already know. I felt like I was constantly falling short, and so if I could just figure out how to do better and be better, we would be okay.
Yeah, yeah. And then what happened as time went on? After you graduated from high school, were you still dating this person?
I was. I went off to college, and the verbal and emotional abuse continued to get worse. I ran from my class back to my dorm to be there and available to pick up the phone because I knew if I wasn't that there would be consequences, certainly, and made sure not to make any close friends at school because I didn't want them to get in our business, as he called it. Would often spend time driving from school back to his apartment multiple times a week just to be there when he got home from football practice because I didn't want to be accused of screwing around, and he'd check my miles on my car to make sure that I hadn't stopped anywhere along the way. And so the emotional and verbal abuse continued to get worse, but still there wasn't any physical abuse at that time.
Did you ever feel at any point that this relationship is just not working out, you know, even though it hadn't got to the point of physical abuse, that it's just not worth it?
I knew that there was a lot of drama in this relationship, but I also knew that most of my friends were in relationships that they considered to be dramatic as well. And so for someone that didn't have a ton of relationship experience and that didn't really understand that I was deserving of anything better, I assumed that what wasn't going right in my relationship was my fault, and that if I could just get it together and be enough and do enough, that ultimately those sorts of issues would resolve themselves.
Did you ever feel like confronting him and saying, look, this is who I am?
I did on occasion, and he would make all sorts of excuses for why he had behaved the way that he had or said the things that he said, and would often flip it around on me and make me feel like I was out of line and that it was my fault. And so then I decided that it likely was, and that it was just easier to be quiet.
And then from that point on in college, you continued to date him, and what happened?
I did. Our sophomore year in college was our first incident of physical abuse. He blamed it on alcohol. The morning that we woke up after he hit me the first time, he was in tears and basically said, you know that there's a history of alcoholism in my family. I've been partying a lot at college. We've been together almost 3 years now. Don't you think if I was an abusive guy, this would have happened way before now?
So he was apologetic and tried to explain it all away.
Absolutely.
Then, huh? Yeah.
I'm going to stop drinking. This is an alcohol issue. We've had fights way bigger than this. If I was an abusive guy, this would have happened far before now. And in fact, if this happens again, I will open the door for you and suggest that you walk out.
Was that the first kind of red flag that went up for you at that point, that something is just not right here?
I knew then in that moment that even if this relationship was full of drama, that putting his hands on me was a whole nother level, and that wasn't okay. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And after that, did he lay off?
For months.
For months.
Things were really good.
Yeah.
We call this the honeymoon phase, right?
Yeah.
Everything's great. Go out with your friends, have a turkey sandwich, go to the college football game. I love you, love you, love you. He stopped drinking for a while, and so I was convinced that this was an alcohol issue, and that as long as he didn't drink, we'd be okay.
Yeah. So let's advance it. How did you get to the point to say, this relationship is not good, I've got to get out of it, you know, no matter what? You know, he tries to be apologetic, and how he comes to me and says, you know, it's something else that's causing the whatever. How did you say it's over?
Sure. My dad passed away from cancer when I was a junior in college, and 5 weeks later I found out I was pregnant. And it was at that point that things in our relationship escalated very quickly and very significantly. When my son was about 1.5 years, I was still trying to finish school and being basically beaten on a daily basis for any number of reasons, and knew at that point that I needed to leave, but we had cameras installed in our apartment, and he'd follow me to and from school, and he'd wait for me in the parking lot, and I'd walk with my head down to the car to make sure that nobody made eye contact with me along the way, because I knew that there would be hell to pay. And on one particular occasion, he went after me with a closed fist, and I was holding our son, and he hit him in the mouth instead, and that's when I knew that I'd rather die than spend another day in the relationship.
As traumatic as it was for you, this is great information for parents and for teenage girls who may be watching today, to know that they don't have to stay in this kind of relationship.
They sure don't.
Yeah. What do you tell them when you talk to them now?
I recognize that what was true for me and what is true for so many young girls in San Diego and around the country is that we set ourselves up ultimately to walk into relationships that are potentially trouble when we are looking for our value and validation in someone else. And so much of my conversation with young women today is about the fact that they are enough just as they are. and that ultimately, if they don't believe that they are enough, that they have no business walking into a relationship looking for somebody else to fulfill that in them, that it's an opportunity for them to really do some work on themselves, to determine who they are as an individual, what their interests are, what they'd like to get involved in, what's important to them, their value system, and so that as they begin to feel a stronger sense of identity and worth, then maybe then it's an opportunity to consider getting into a relationship.
So we talk about the identity, but when a girl is in a teenage girl's in a relationship with a guy, what do you tell her from the standpoint of, hey, this is one of the red flags that you need to be looking for before it progresses to the extent of
we
abuse?
talk about red flags and warning signs often, and one of the things that can be confusing for young women, especially today, given the sort of challenges we have around social media and technology, and Tracy alluded to this as well, is that we have the opportunity to be connected to our partner 24 hours a day. And so there's some confusion there, because young girls will often say, well, all of my friends text their boyfriends every minute of every day.
It's
and
kind of a common thing.
Correct.
They just don't think anything about it.
And the expectation is that I respond immediately.
Right.
And so what I say is that ultimately that it's not just about the red flag, it's about the response to the red flag. If I have a conversation with my boyfriend as a young girl and say, you know, the fact that you expect me to respond within 30 seconds of a text message coming through makes me feel like you don't trust me, and I want to be in a relationship where there's trust, and I want to know that we have that, and I want to feel like I get to pursue my own hobbies and interests and friendships. If his response is, you know what, you're absolutely right, and I don't intend to make you feel that way, and I want that too, let's talk about how we can do this differently in a way that feels good to both of us, great. If he says, screw you, and you better pick up that phone the moment that I text you, and if you don't, it's because I know you're up to no good, that's an indicator that there's a problem.
Yeah. We've got just a few seconds left in this segment. We're going to talk about more, a little bit about the campaign that you've got going on.
So, exciting campaign. February obviously being Teen Dating Relationship Violence Awareness Month. It's a perfect opportunity to launch a campaign such as this. We want to begin to infiltrate San Diego County with messages surrounding what a healthy relationship looks like and what it doesn't. We want to ensure that parents are aware that they are the primary role model or example of what it means to be in healthy or unhealthy relationship. We want to make sure that young people really understand the early red flags and warning signs so that they don't end up having to wait until a situation like mine. And we also want to ensure that our community recognizes that this is an investment that we all need to make together, and that the responsibility is everyone's.
Yeah, indeed it is. All right, we're going to continue with this in just a minute. Thanks. Still ahead on San Diego People, a closer look at what San Diego County is doing to tackle teen domestic violence. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Our topic this week is teen dating violence, and as we mentioned, several organizations have teamed up together in the community to put a stop to it. Part of the campaign are public service announcements. Some of them played during this past Super Bowl. Let's take a look at one of them.
Hi, I'm Jerry Atachi.
And I'm Josh Lambo from the Chargers.
Parents, you are the single greatest model of relationships for your teen.
We rely on you to show us healthy examples for our relationships.
When you hurt each other, you're teaching me it's okay for relationships to hurt.
Teens who witness domestic violence in their homes are more likely to experience mental health challenges and substance abuse.
Call the National Domestic Violence Hotline to be connected to local resources.
Well, joining us now again to talk about this, Deputy District Attorney Tracy Pryor and Jessica Yaffa also, who is the president of the San Diego Domestic Violence Council. Thank you both again for being with us. We just watched that commercial, that public service announcement. Are most parents just not aware of this? I know I have two older boys, and at the time, I didn't think that much about it. I didn't hear that much about it to talk to my kids.
Sure, yes. I think that most parents are in your shoes. I know that we didn't talk about it much in my house. We talked about a lot of things, but domestic violence certainly wasn't one of them. And so one of the things that Tracy mentioned earlier on in the show, which is so important for us all to understand, is that everyone is susceptible. And so this is not an issue that just needs to be talked about in certain households. It needs to be talked about in everybody's household.
Tracy, what age is a good age to begin to set your kids down and say, look, this is something that you need to be aware of. This is something I want you to know as a parent.
Sure. I think because of just the nature of when kids start kind of intimate partner relationships, is more high school, end of junior high, that obviously that's a good time to talk about the relationship that might be going on right now with your teen. But I think even earlier than that, I mean, we can start with elementary school age kids, little tips, take a picture of draw your hand, trace your hand, tell me some ideas. What are hands for? Hands are not for hitting, they're for handshakes and high fives and hugs and, high fives and low fives.
Sure.
But, you can start even young like that. Even the talk about being comfortable in your own skin with young, elementary school age. You're setting them up for the fact that your identity does not need to happen because of a relationship with a boy or a girl. You get your self-esteem from within. And so even starting that at elementary school age, I think is a healthy thing. Then once we get to the time when kids are starting to date or, have intimate partners in high school, just recognizing that relationships should be built on trust, honesty, and feeling safe. And so if parents can even have that dialogue with their kids, such as, do you feel like you always have to keep running to the phone? Why? Can't you just not text them back? Why can't you just not text them back? Why not just go to your sports, and why not just go be with your other friends? And, just question a little bit like that. And a lot of times the kids will open up if they truly are scared.
Jessica, you've got the Chargers on board, you've got other organizations on board helping with this campaign. What's the one central theme that you really want to drive home about this campaign?
I think the central theme being the tagline, which is now is the time. Now is the time for any one of us, whether we are a teen, an 8-year-old, a parent, a teacher, a coach, a police officer, the district attorney, to step up and begin to understand our own personal responsibility in changing the way that we talk about relationship issues, respond to issues surrounding domestic violence, and that ultimately what we think or have thought of as sort of being a segmented issue has the opportunity to become a San Diego community issue, as it's always intended to be.
And we spoke briefly about this in the commercial break, but are boys sometimes in a situation where they experience teen domestic abuse?
Absolutely. And my response to you was that we talked a little bit about the stigma attached to young girls coming forward and some of the challenges around that. Mm-hmm. You can imagine what it must feel like for a young boy to come forward and say, I'm learning how to be a young man and what it means to sort of be in this young man body, and I need to now report that my girlfriend is humiliating me in public, or calling me names, or forcing me to do things that I'm not comfortable with, or hitting me, and that because I don't have bruises, or because she's not potentially giving me any visible signs of that abuse, ultimately that's okay. I think that it's much more confusing for young men, and that there's even more stigma attached to boys being abused than girls, but it's certainly happening, and it's something that we need to ensure that we're paying attention to and talking about.
Tracy, what kind of response have you seen from schools in the county?
Well, I think that schools, it would be healthy for schools to put this in their curriculum. I think that now is the time to, as teachers and superintendents and school professionals, to say, let's add this in our health class. Let's add this in our sex ed training.
That's a great idea.
The talk about healthy relationships. Yeah. And, this is a very natural time to talk about red signs and warning flags, even bystander intervention. What can you do as a friend if you think that your friend is in one of these relationships, and how to tell. They've been leaving their friends, or they've been quitting activities at school, or withdrawn, or just feel like they have to always text back. That as friends, as bystanders, that this is the time to step in and try to make sure that our friends are okay.
Mm-hmm. Now, if a young girl or a young boy wants to get some help, maybe they want to bypass their parents because they're embarrassed, or where can they go? Who do they talk to?
There are all sorts of organizations in San Diego County that provide resources and services. The hub of those services is the San Diego Domestic Violence Council website. And on that website are all sorts of resources attached to teen relationship violence. There are a number of nonprofit organizations, including mine, which is No Silence, No Violence, that has just started a free support group for teens to discuss healthy relationships. And so there are many opportunities for teens to come forward without having to disclose this to anyone.
And we have the number up right now for the Teen Domestic Violence Hotline and the San Diego Domestic Violence Council website. So Those are two very important places that teenagers can go to get help. And of course, I guess you'd also say, you know, reach out to your parents too.
Absolutely. Or a trusted adult. Some people don't want to reach out to their parents. They feel that their parents might feel, why didn't you tell me sooner? And they might be in trouble. So reach out to, whether it be a friend, a trusted coach, a trusted teacher, anybody that they trust, because that reaction from that trusted friend could go a long way.
Okay. I've learned a lot from this program today. Thank you both for being with us.
You bet, our
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Thanks.
Pleasure.
And that's it for this morning's edition of San Diego People. Be sure and join us tonight for the KUSI News at 6, 10, and 11. Have a great day.